engaging with members today looks a little bit different than it did 2 or 3 years ago. COVID had a huge impact, and I know for each of you, we've talked about some of the challenges that's presented and how you're overcoming them. So open question, feel free to popcorn your answers here. How has the pandemic, the last 3 years, changed the way that you engage with members from 2019 up to today?
I'm happy to start. You know, I think what's interesting about the pandemic and how it's really changed how really everyone engages with their members or their clients is needing to meet them where they are. So if that, and actually on their own terms, so whether that's a digital solution or something else, you know, our credit union tends to be a little bit more hands-on with our members, meaning that they enjoy coming in, they enjoy spending time with us, and that in some ways changed, right, by way of the pandemic. So for us, it's really about sharing the other ways that we can connect with them, how to be in touch with us, and making sure those tools are accessible to everyone. So that's just one way. But you know, we've done a lot over the last couple of years in terms of trying to create feedback loops and really listen to our members and their needs outside of day-to-day transactions or things that are impacting their lives. But how can we actually serve them better? Where do we have gaps in our markets? We've stood up member councils in all of our geographies or markets where we've gone out with them to really try to engage with them about the solutions we offer and how can we make those better? Where are we hitting the mark? Where do we need to improve? And whether that's retail solutions or business banking solutions, that is another kind of vertical in our credit union is we do offer business banking, but we want to hear from our members. And I think that makes us unique because we're here to serve them. And if you take a credit union and compare it to a bank, it's really taking that time and authentically listening and responding with, we've heard you, and this is what we're going to do to change. Or this is what we're going to do to make it better or frictionless. We're a lot more nimble than a bank can be at times.
Yeah, the theme that I hear, this is the best way it comes to mind right now, is going from a reactive engagement to a proactive. How can we get out into the community and engage with people where they are? And like you said, Lindsey, for some people that might mean a community council, and others that might mean, you know, implementing a stronger digital solution. Like Howie, maybe you can speak to I know you're doing some work around text messaging and text banking, what that's looked like for you.
So what COVID did for us is it made us realize that we're not available when our members want us to be available. So the last year and a half, I spent a lot of money on technology and doing technology upgrades. So into our contact center, we've put artificial intelligence. So we now have AI working through the contact center. One of the great learnings from that is that AI is available 24/7, and the amount of calls coming through after hours, after business hours, are now being addressed, which before were just falling by the wayside, waiting for people to come back. So that was an actual big aha moment for me in terms of COVID and the reporting that we had. Excuse me. Following up on the AI, we said, well, how else do members want to do business with us? So we rolled out texting, and we have texting going on right now, where members can just join it, text us for any questions or concerns they have, and basically from the links that we're able to send out, we're also able to send members to where they want to be sent. So for a loan application or for a new account. And while they're doing it, we're also able to text along with them. So just a little bit of what's available technology-wise has gone a long way for us. So those are some of the things that we've done different since the COVID environment.
I think what's great about that too, Howard, is people want that person-to-person connection. And we're so used to communicating via text anyway, that if we feel like we're communicating with someone we know who understands us and can meet us where we are, it doesn't feel impersonal, right? Because members still want that personal connection. And some are more or less comfortable in a digital environment doing that. So I'm really interested in what you're doing and the AI in particular, and we can chat more about that another time.
And I'll just add on one more piece to that is that we're all looking for a younger demographic to do banking with us. And if you think about the younger demographic, are they calling or are they texting? So, we know that we're getting a large response from a younger demographic on the texting side as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pass the baton to Michelle in a moment. I actually remember, Michelle, I was looking on your LinkedIn the other day. I think you have an article that talks a little bit about AI. So I won't let you loose completely. You could probably talk the whole time about that. But I want to hear your thoughts. As I do that, I'm gonna do just what Howie was saying and use some text to engage the group here. I'd love to hear, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced engaging with members? And as Michelle's talking, we might weave some of these questions in and respond to the audience here.
My goodness, there's so much to talk about. And I think my peers here have covered phenomenal topics, and I'm going to say ditto to everything they said. But to add something new, the ways that our membership has changed, I'm going to take a little bit different slant. I think that COVID had an impact on consumers. And when they did come back, I think we forgot how to interact. Our members are a little bit less patient than they were before COVID. So much so that we identified and brought in very quickly a de-escalation training program, because we had to arm our people on how to handle a member that was a little more irate than we'd ever seen in the past. And something that I think is really important to mention that makes A+ very different is we look at our employee experience equal to our member experience, and not one is above or below the other. This is my 5th credit union I've worked at, because I'm not a young spring chicken, but you didn't hear that. And I have to say, a lot of credit unions say it. This is the first organization I worked at personally where I saw them actually live it. And so it's an extraordinary culture that we have. So our focus, I love what you were saying, Lindsey, about we want to hear from you and we've heard you. In addition to doing that with our members, we realize the value and the necessity to do that with your team members, because I keep saying, and I say this almost like a broken record, I've never been a leader in a pandemic. This is my first. And the things that worked, that I, for 30 years, have an amazing experience with in leadership, were not working with the pandemic. And so I had to pivot and change and become agile and become very comfortable with saying, I don't know the answer to that. Would you mind if we take some time and find it together? I'm not quite sure.
I love that. And I think, Michelle, too, with the team member side, we have to take great care of them first, because they can't take great care of our membership if they're not well kept themselves. And, to that point, we do team member engagement surveys so that we can collect feedback from them. And a survey is one thing, but to action it and say, okay, here are some things that we can control, that we can do better and differently so they can continue to serve our membership well. That's a huge investment, right? That's going to pay off leaps and bounds for us if we have happy team members that can take great care of our membership.
And just to add, think about it. It's so hard right now to hire, and it's hard to hire in the United States of America and probably beyond. It's not a regional thing. It's not a credit union thing. It's just a world thing. If you think about organizations that don't take the time to value their employee experience and to provide and protect that, they're not going to be around long, because you need people to serve people. And it's back to our fundamentals, people helping people, right? That's the credit union motto. But it is about taking care of people, and team members are people too.
So you're hitting on something I wanted to go into next, that the basis for a strong member experience is having skilled and talented employees who are equipped to have a consultative conversation with your members. So if we zoom out for a moment here, COVID obviously has changed how we attract and retain employees and how we're working. There's a lot of remote work going on, challenges with getting people to work in person, though I know, and we'll probably get into here, that has impacted your organization slightly differently. But I'm curious, how has COVID or how have the last 3 years changed the way that you're engaging with your team members and building a world-class experience for them?
I'll just add on to what I've said. We have really embraced being agile, and we take the organization with us. We take the team members with us. So if there's something that has to be accomplished or done or achieved, rather than doing it in a vacuum, which might have worked in organizations before COVID, we don't. We take the opportunity to be very transparent, to create. We have become so good at video communications, it's ridiculous. Our CEO is constantly doing videos and publishing it to the organization, and we follow suit. I think leadership is really important because my team members are my leaders that are in the retail division. And I oversee a few different departments, branches, contact center, a member experience team, branch operations, security, and a few more, business development. They are very agile and they focus on the team member and the employee. But training and development, basic. It's a basic expectation, which brings us to consultative conversations through SRG. It is every member interaction you have needs to be a quality member interaction. And that's only going to happen if you hyper invest in your team members and your employee, because you cannot give what you do not possess, right? Mm-hmm. So making sure that your team members have the skills that they need. Think about it. It's just setting them up for success. So how do you set your team members up for success? You give them the tools and resources that they need.
Yeah. I'll tag on to that. I think, in my experience, this is the first credit union I've ever worked for. And I will tell you though, that the organization I came from, the feel and the culture is very similar. So I don't feel like I'm not at home, right, in the credit union. But as I came in and really observed and listened and kind of got curious about what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing, we've grown so much over the last 2 years and entered new markets and have different models. And there's tremendous inconsistency across our geography. And bringing that consistency into play now is crucial for us for a number of reasons. And one of them is the team member experience and getting them well equipped to serve our membership better than they have before. For example, we had a multitude of different jobs. In our branches, we had universal models and we had more traditional models and we had a hybrid of both. And so what I've done is bring some structure and simplicity to that. And I've retitled everyone. And while titles aren't important, the reason it was important for us was to be able to help people understand their work, to help them better understand the behavior that we're expecting from them. So MSRs, which I think we probably all are familiar with, member service representatives, we're thinking about it as member experience representatives. So there's an experience that we're trying to deliver, and it's special and it's different and it's personalized. Financial service officers, FSOs, we're still going to think of them as FSOs, but what about financial solutions officers instead? So what it's trying to reorient their mindset to give them purpose every day, to connect their work with the value they add for our members. And like I said, the whole idea of titles might seem less important to some, but for us, it's really about shifting this mindset. I believe that our team wants to show up every day and understand better how their contributions make a difference. And whether that's for a specific member or on their team or the broader credit union, I believe we owe it to them to connect their work with purpose. And so they can deliver very well back to our membership. But aside from that, reskilling people, I think Stephen had a comment in the chat, right? Skill sets. There's new team members, the pandemic, the soft skills. In all of that I just mentioned, I have to reskill them. We in our credit union haven't had a sales culture for a number of years. So we're starting at a really kind of foundational level. So if I want to connect their work with purpose, I have to teach them what their work looks like and how to do a fantastic job. And that investment in them they're hungry for. And I believe as employers, we owe it to our people to make them better. So.
I'll actually take Lindsey one step further in terms of engagement. So from where I sit organizationally is letting everyone know that everyone that's working together are each other's customers or members. So you're just really letting the team themselves know how they're contributing to the bottom line, what they're doing, how everybody impacts the member experience. And by helping a teammate in another group or another area, you're also helping the member, because the reason they're asking the question is it's always about, we're member-centric, and it's always about the member. So if you're being asked a question or asked to help somebody, it's not because somebody wants to bother you or is going out of their way to annoy you. It's more about the fact that they have a concern that they need to meet for a member. So we really are focused the entire organization on the member. And also to Stephen's question, the incentive plan that we have in place here is a company incentive plan. So I don't have an incentive plan broken down to individual people to sell widgets, because we want everyone to be engaged and having the right conversations. So basically we tie it back to corporate goals, toward member satisfaction goals, toward things that everybody can contribute to by the behaviors they present.
So I want to hit on something that Lindsey, you mentioned, that gosh, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here, so forgive me. Going back to the comment that I think it was Patrick, excuse me, paying people for behaviors, not results. I'm really curious how that looks. I'm going a little bit off script here, but what does that look like within each of your organizations, or how would you respond to that sentiment?
Okay, well, I'll go first since I'm still on mic. Basically, the way it works for us is that we have different types of rewards going on here. So globally, like I said, every incentive or rewards and bonuses in terms of cash compensation take place on an annual basis based on how we perform organizationally against the strategic goals that we have in place. And everybody's aware of what we have to do and where we are and how we're doing. So we have quarterly team meetings where, great technology in place now, so everybody can join no matter where they are. And so everybody knows how we're doing, and what we're doing. The other part of it is that we do on-the-spot recognition for good behavior. The managers of each of the groups, frontline or back office, reward their team members when they see good behaviors going on. That might be offering them dinner, providing them with an expense to go out to dinner, providing them with one of the managers that keeps lottery tickets in their desk. So every time someone's doing a behavior they want to see, so just on-the-spot recognition to keep rewarding the behaviors they're seeing. But again, nobody's really focused on the widget. Everybody's focused on the conversation they're having and just making sure that they're providing the right answer and in a friendly manner.
Love that, Howie. Anything you would add, Lindsey or Michelle, there?
Go ahead, Michelle. I saw you.
So I love what Howard said. Absolutely. Beautifully said, Howard. The only thing that I would add to that is investing in the coach. I think coaching is a very specific skill set, and it's one that I think, Greg, we take very seriously at A+. Everything begins and ends with leadership. And so making sure that the coaches are properly skilled up as well, because there's one thing to be an MSO or an FSO or whatever we're going to call them and interacting with a member, but it's a different skill set to coach those that interact with members. So spending time on creating training and expectations, minimum expectations on what we expect from a coach. Do we expect them to walk the floor? Do we expect them to spend time observing their staff? Should they be not only observing their staff, but then debriefing with them after, providing quality feedback, coaching, guidance? At the end of the day, just think of a basketball team. a coach is always coaching. And I think in financial services, we can forget that. We can forget, oh, I'm a coach, I'm supposed to be coaching. And so we want to make sure that we're aligned. And I think taking a very purposeful, a very methodical and intentional approach to coaching is minimum expectations. I think it's very critical to success.
I love everything you just said, Michelle. In fact, we just kicked off our high impact sales coaching class this week. And I opened up each session with that analogy around sports coaching, like who's played sports, who's been a part of a sports team, who's coached sports teams, because there is that correlation, right? Like we're all here to make people better. So, paying people for behaviors, not results. I probably walk in the middle of that somewhere, right? And I think the reason is I'm kind of reconciling this comment a little bit to say, teaching and coaching the right behaviors should lead to exceptional results, right? And so is it the chicken or the egg? Because if we're coaching to behaviors that we expect, that are in the spirit of our culture and in the spirit of doing the right thing, and we have accountability built around that we're, we can't just have an expectation and just sort of let it go. I mean, we've got to make sure it's happening and happening well and consistently, and we're making that investment in our people, then that's as a leading indicator. The lag indicator should be consistent and ongoing performance, right? And it's up to us, I think, as a leadership team to put measures in place to make sure that it is always in the right spirit. That's up to us. So I probably walk somewhere in the middle around, yes, I align completely with what Howie said around, on the spot recognition, celebrating our team members. We have shout outs, we do those things too. But then there should be recognition around performance as well. So, for example, we do something very similar to Howie and what your credit union does annually, right? It's based on the performance of the credit union and how we all do. We have biannual NPS score payouts. And so the team members get a cash bonus for our NPS score. And then annually, we have our performance payouts as well. But I think our team members are asking for more. They want to, it goes back to, they want to know how they're contributing. They want to know how they're adding value. It's up to this leadership team to decide, how do we stand that up in a way that is ethical, that is right, that we feel like we have the right controls around and the right leadership voice around, so that we don't look like everyone else. We don't do it like everyone else. And we're serving our members in a stronger way now because we're recommending our great products and services and educating them around that better than we ever have. So when we go back to thinking about the challenges engaging with our members, the mindset, right, of our team members in proactively saying, "Ooh, I heard that, that's interesting, we have something that can help you," and feeling very open to make that recommendation is one of those behaviors that leads to success.
Actually, I'm just going to add on to that one more piece. One of the things on top of the rewards that everyone just spoke about was the development piece. So we spoke about the coaching and we spoke about the individual and coming back to the member itself. But the teammate themselves, as they're progressing, you need to make sure that you're recognizing that and providing the opportunities in-house as well, because their natural growth and their career progression really is dependent on how they're doing. And if we're not recognizing it or pigeonholing people into spots because they're doing such a good job there and we don't want to lose them there, we're hurting ourselves because they're going to wind up going somewhere else where they can spread their wings.
Yep.
Yeah, no, love this discussion, and thank you, Patrick, for prompting that. So I want to shift gears here, and I'm going to go back. I remembered, Lindsey, the comment you made and how it ties in. So you talked before about the importance of the words we use and how that impacts the mindset and how we're interacting with members. So just to that point, one of the probably most controversial words within financial services space is sales. So I'm going to open it up. I want to start by getting the audience thoughts here. So I'll put a question in the chat. We probably have mixed feelings, some of us, about the word sales and how that should be used within how we engage with members. So I'm curious, why does sales get a bad reputation within the credit union space? I'm wondering everyone's experience with that. So please chat in. I'll give a moment here and we can start to jump into the conversation. Well, I'll share my own story as people are getting going with their chat responses. Having worked with both, traditional financial institutions and in the credit union space, I remember one group in particular where I had some accounts, don't have accounts there anymore. I could see the screen when I would walk in and I had a transaction, I needed to deposit a check. Their system had an alert every time of what's the relevant credit card offer. And the conversation I had was not one of tact where they heard a need and they had a relevant solution for me. It was, hey, are you aware of this new credit card offer? Can we get you signed up, or can we send you more information about that? And as a customer, I checked out. I knew I just have to sit here and listen to this until the person is done, and I can tell them no thank you and move on. And it sort of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So that's kind of, for me, is I don't want something to be pushed on me that's not useful to me. And I think often that's the reputation that sales get. So that's my own story, but we've got some other chats coming in here, so I just want to take a minute to look here. Michelle, I saw your comment there. Don't need to repeat, but yeah, I think we've all had that kind of experience, or at least a similar one, if not so extreme. So Patrick, members don't want to have and deserve a unique and positive experience. They want to have conversations that help solve their problems. Yeah, member owned, should feel like it's to the member's benefit, not revenue. Terry, yeah, indicative of commercial banks. Stephen, I know you're on Michelle's team. So previous experiences at traditional financial institutions, not good, not the right solution. So let's jump in. I'll open it to the panelists here. You can build on any of the comments you see in the chat, or just share from your experience why that's been a challenging work, I should say.
I started in banking and then have done the bulk of my career in credit unions, and I see the dichotomy there. It is a culture shift. It's a different way of being, but if you think about it, it makes sense. Banks are for profit. They have a board of directors that are paid very good money, and they have shareholders, whereas a credit union is not for profit, and our board of directors are volunteers. They don't get paid anything at all. The best way we can pay them is taking them to a nice strategic planning session somewhere and give them really good lobster and wine. But at the end of the day, I think, to me, having my experience, I don't think sales is a bad word personally, but I say that, and our organization has made a very intentional decision to use consultative conversations. We're staying away from the word sales because of what could happen perception-wise, especially someone young, and we hire a lot of young people coming from high school, right, or in college. So I teach this. I think the best salesman in the world has repeat business because they build relationships of trust, they have integrity, they stand behind their word. And if we remember what sales really is, it's presenting value. It's about looking at the individual in front of you, whether they're your client, your member, your customer, and doing right by them. If you happen to have products and services that can meet their needs, that's a win-win. And so at a credit union, you're going to find, in my experience, we are going to go far beyond to make sure that we do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Not to meet a quota. We don't have quotas. Not to push a product. In fact, we don't like product pushing at all. And that's every credit union I've worked at. I think it's about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
Totally agree with you, Michelle. And it's really interesting, right? Like the word sales, because for me, for our organization, we have been very deliberate in saying we are going to go back to a sales culture. I've come from another organization where sales was a bad word, where it didn't feel like that was, that everybody kind of bought in on how we wanted to present that. And so we bantered it around, right? Was it sales culture? Was it a growth culture? Was it, we don't need a sales culture because we deliver an exceptional member experience or customer experience. And so naturally people want to come. And what I found in 20 years of that was that our lack of clarity around what we wanted to call it just kept kicking the can down the road. And so, it really is about alignment, I think, at the leadership level to say, how do we want to address this and be consistent about that and stay there? The lack of clarity that we as leaders can be guilty for providing doesn't actually help us move our mission forward of people helping people. And whether it's team members, right? If we can't be clear in our communications or in how we're trying to move an initiative forward, nobody can really help one another get there, or let alone help our members. And so we've just been more deliberate about saying, yes, we're going to return to a sales culture. But our sales culture, as I've been speaking about it, is going to be thoughtful, and it's going to be in the spirit of our culture, and it's going to be built on our values and really meeting our members' needs where they find themselves in a financial journey right now or in the future. And it's taking the best of who we are and leveraging new ways to think about how we serve our members well. And I think the biggest thing any of us could ever ask for, Michelle, you mentioned repeat business, 100%. Anybody who's very good at sales will have repeat business because of that trust and because of the guidance and expertise they have and can provide. But in addition to that, our ability to retain business of our members because they know what we do is critical. We have to share that with them. And maybe that's not what we're real good at. And I'll speak for my organization itself, but maybe that's what we're not real great at today. And so if we can have better conversations and do a better job listening, everything else will come and fall into place as it should and in the right ways.
I love that. The idea of, Lindsey, we've talked about this before and you can build on this, but there's this, I think of it as a spectrum of, on one side, we can be pushing product and we're too aggressive. On the other side, we're too passive and we're just taking orders. I think that what happens is when we're so afraid of that word sales, we get too passive. So what's the risk of that passive approach to member conversations or member engagement?
I think your members start looking for other, oh, sorry, that wasn't for me.
No, you can go ahead. Howie, feel free to jump in then. Anyone can.
Okay. I was just reading Terry's message to the group to see what it said. So basically, first off, reform banker here. So I spent many, many years working for one of the largest banks in a formal sales program, which credit unions don't live or do, and I'm very grateful for. That being said, though, I have a unique challenge that a lot of my peers don't, is that my front line, only half of my credit union is unionized, and our Teamsters, that front half that are unionized are my sales force. So I have an added piece of, why do I need to do anything for anybody because I'm going to get my 55-cent pay raise because the contract says that I get 55 cents, and what more do I need to do? So going back to Patrick's message earlier about company culture that he put out there, that's really what drives the sales culture within our organization, and helping the teammates on the front line understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. It's not about themselves individually, but they all really do care about the members they're taking care of. So having the right conversations with the right people is really important. I've been here for a little more than 2 years now. When I came here, there basically was no sales culture whatsoever. And sales was a bad word. And even talking about helping people was a bad word. So it was really a slower process for me in the sense of educating what it really does mean to have a consultative conversation. What does it mean to be helping somebody? And it's really not about anything, but we have 100 products. What do we do? How do we help the members by just making them aware and listening to what their needs are? So the listening and consultative part of it was critical to me moving the organization forward. Otherwise, we would have withered and died.
If I can answer, I love Terry Stone, him or her. I'm going to read out loud the beautiful chat. It says, how do you feel about tellers having referral goals? It's kind of the same thing. You were talking about a screen showing what to offer next. I call that next best offer. So my personal opinion on that, I think that's a great tool to have, but I think it's just a tool. I think if you have an expectation that your frontline, no matter what, says, oh, by the way, you're pre-approved for a blank, are you interested? That's called product pushing. But if I have the next best product there and I say, hey, by the way, you know what brings you in today, Mr. So-and-so? And I engage in a meaningful conversation. And then I say, you know, do you have a credit card somewhere? Because I noticed you don't have a credit card with A+. And they say, well, yes, I do, Michelle. I have a credit card at blah, blah, blah. You know, what do you like about that credit card? Now that's consultative conversation. So I don't think having the next best product pop up is a bad thing. I think the training, the behavior needs to be well thought out, purposeful, and intentional. And that's where the coaches come back. I'm going to come back to coaching, because coaches have to be there with them, making sure they're overhearing and that interaction is exactly what the organization expects. I hope that kind of answered, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, Terry, feel free to comment if you had a follow-up question about that. I was just going to plug for everyone else on the call. If you do have a specific question that you would like answered, feel free to chat that in or just prepare that. We'll take a couple of questions towards the end of the call. But thank you, Michelle, for getting back on that. So building on this idea of sales culture, excuse me, I got to keep my thoughts going here. Michelle, I'm going to kind of pick on you for a second here, because we've talked about why is this important for a specific credit union or for a member interaction. I know you and I have talked about the credit union mission, sort of the broader credit union movement on the whole. In your opinion, how does building a sales culture support that mission?
Oh my God, I love that question. Thank you for letting me participate in that. So I am a credit union diehard individual. I believe in our credit union movement. I think it is a movement. I think it's bigger than a bread box. And when I think about a world without credit unions, I get very nervous, because think about what fees banks charge today. And because we invest and we have lobbyists out there that are knocking on doors, talking about the value of a credit union, of a member-owned financial institution, I strongly believe we keep banks at bay. Like, if I truly believe that if we didn't have credit unions, an NSFE would be $100 at minimum. And imagine a world where that's where you have to pay. I mean, I know members that come to our credit union that every $10 matters. And it's whether I'm going to buy formula or food for myself or my children. So when it comes to a consultative conversations culture, I believe it's the way we're going to protect the credit union movement. I think that we have to recognize that skilling up our people and ourselves, because like any other skill set, it needs refinement and practice. And think about a basketball player. The moment you stop practicing, what's going to happen to my game? So it's no different with any skill, right? So when you and I are talking, Greg, about a consultative conversations, the words that I use are, how do I make this repeatable, sustainable, and long going? It can't just be a one and done. This has to be something in the culture. And I think somebody here wrote that it is the culture of an organization that creates the sales culture. And I believe that 100%. It's not what you do, it's how you go about doing it. And the fervor, the priority that you give it, and the follow-up that you invest in it. So I firmly believe credit unions, we need to become better consultants. We have to put our money where our mouth is, and we have to invest in our people being the best version of themselves and skilling them up.
I totally agree with you, Michelle. And I think you talk about repeatable, right? Like building in repetition. And I call that intentional success, which is there is a process. There's something that's repeatable about what we're doing, and we can always count on that working, right? Because it is with intention and it is repeatable. I think, Greg, one of the questions you were going to ask too had something to do with like, why is this important? But like, what's at risk, right? Like, what's at risk if this doesn't happen, or if we don't kind of balance growth and expectation with culture and being member-centric, right? Like, what's at risk here? And I think at the end of the day, we can always say that we will be member-centric. That's not the question for us, right? But what cost? Like, if we don't start to weave in some sales and growth and consultative conversations and being knowledgeable experts, and the risk is that our members will go somewhere else. They will, because we haven't educated them. We haven't shared what we do well with them. Number one. And number two is think about the fintechs, guys. That's an elephant in the room, right? And we know that there's tons of deposits that are held with Venmo, PayPal, and others. There's just money sitting there, and it's not in our organizations. Like, it's not in our community. It's in our communities, but it's being held elsewhere. And so if it's not us that's willing to sort of educate our membership on how we can help, they're going to go to a fintech. They're going to go to somewhere else to get what they need. And we owe it to them as a member-owned organization to share that with them. So that's the risk. And I've seen it before, whether it's a credit union or a bank. If we don't share, they very much will go somewhere else, and we lose the opportunity to continue to develop that relationship. And I think Philip said it well. It's like, there's less built-in membership. So we can't assume, right, that everyone's just going to come flocking. That's not how it works anymore. But having come from a bank more recently, I can absolutely tell you that credit unions pose tremendous competition to traditional banks and publicly traded banks. They do, because we can deliver with as much sophistication in many cases as a bank can. And I can speak for Valley Strong in saying that we very much think of ourselves differently and more progressive, right? So it's sort of the best of both worlds, and doing the right thing and feeling very good about supporting our communities, but doing that with some sophistication and savvy as well, all in the spirit of a great member experience. So it's not easy to do. I think we would all agree with that, but we certainly are trying to do it the right way.
Love that, Lindsey. So I want to get
Greg, I just want to build one more thing off of that.
Yeah.
Is one of the things that we're doing for our members by doing all that we've spoken about is building trust. Right? So through the years, credit unions have always done better than the banks in terms of being recognized for the trust that's being built. Not so much now. I think over the last 2 years, banks have surpassed credit unions in terms of the surveys that people trust banks. Right? Why are they trusting them? They're trusting them because the banks that they're going to are having good conversations with them, providing the right products and services, and putting them in the right direction. Right? So the banks have learned from the Wells Fargo-ish of selling, as Michelle said earlier. But in order for us to, stay ahead of our game and really help our members, is we need to be having these conversations, and we need to be building the trust of our membership.
Agreed, Howie. It's staying ahead of the curve in terms of the quality of the member interaction. Because banks are learning, they are wanting to improve, and we have to be just one step ahead. So I want to get really practical and finish with this. I think we can spend a few minutes and then have any questions if participants have them. So let's pretend I'm a credit union and I'm convinced now, and I say, Lindsey, Howie, Michelle, okay, I get it. We need to build a sales culture. How do I do that? What steps can I take to build that positive, thoughtful sales culture within my organization?
I would advise an organization to be sure that you work with the right partner. So when we found SRG, I have the value and benefit of working with you in a previous credit union. And that's what I mean, repeat business. So when you're trusted. But in the other credit union and in my current one, I didn't want to poison the well. So I let my staff do the evaluating, and they came up to the same conclusion. Compare SRG to 2 others, at least. It will find you. It is not hard to do to see the difference. And I think you owe it to your organization to evaluate. But when you're looking for the right partner, think in mind of the long term. How can SRG help you, or whoever you're looking at, and how can they help you position? And Lindsey talked about being very purposeful and methodical and just very thoughtful. Build it right from the beginning. One of the things I highly recommend is do not do it alone. Do it with the organization transparently. Greg and his team, they will come out and they will meet with your executives. They will meet with your staff. They will help you message in the right way, because messaging has to be tight when it comes to implementing a sales or consultative culture. It has to be very, very precise. And so you don't want to go wrong there. We're taking a lot of time at A+ to make sure we're communicating with all areas. Even if you're not a salesperson, you're in accounting, or if you're in IT, we're still going to take you through this, because at the end of the day, we want you to know what we're doing and what we're not doing. And we all need to be together. One team, one mission.
Yep. I would echo that, Michelle. And I would say, you've got to have alignment on your leadership team. You've got to, at the top of the house, you've got to have everybody on the executive team with their hands in and saying, yep, we all agree and let's do it. Without that alignment, it will be an uphill battle that will have lack of clarity, that will, it's not going to go well for you, and you're going to spin your wheels and get exceedingly frustrated. So that alignment at the top of the house is critical. And for us, when we chose SRG, I had been talking to 2 or 3 other organizations, and Greg can probably attest to this, but I basically said, Greg, we want to make a decision in, I don't know, Greg, it was like weeks. And so we're ready to go, and we found you and we want to learn more about you. And SRG was who we were looking for, because they cared enough to get to know us, and they cared enough to get to know our culture and our heartbeat. The other folks that we were talking with, which some of you may even be working with today, didn't care so much about that. But I was looking for a relationship, and I was looking for cultural alignment and genuine care. And I found that with this team. So alignment at the top of the house, a great partner that sits well within your culture and cares enough to get to know you, I think are 2 big things for us.
I'll be quick because we're coming up on the hour. I'll say ditto to my peers. I'd say the other thing really to keep in mind to everyone on the call is this isn't something you can do yourself in-house. Don't think oh, it sounds so easy. It's something that we can do. It's really not. It really requires you to spend some time with Greg and team. And regardless if it's Greg and team or whomever you speak with, you need to do your due diligence. You need to reach out. You'll learn that Greg and team are the best. We've all done business with them. So the 3 of us can attest to the fact that that's where you're going to wind up. But do your due diligence. But this is just something that you cannot do yourselves. It's something that you need to pay the consultants to come in and help you with.
Thanks, Howie. So thank you all for your kind words. I'll just maybe even walk it back a little bit. I did not ask them to say that or these are not paid testimonials. I just want to be really sensitive to the same thing we talk about, product pushing. Yes, we do have a program that has been optimized for credit unions. We've been really fortunate to work with some phenomenal credit unions. There are other great credit union providers out there. If it's something that you're looking to implement, we would love to start a conversation, but really it has to be the right fit. And I don't know enough about, if you're a participant on the call, I don't know enough about your organization to say, yes, we're the perfect fit or not. So just want to be really sensitive to that. And you guys are so kind and thoughtful in sharing that. But with that, I'm gonna put a highlight, or just kind of the 3 things that I heard in the chat. That don't do it alone. This takes outside expertise. That's my opinion, but I'm obviously a biased party. I am an outside support. Be really careful that however you develop a curriculum or messaging around sales culture, it has to embody your values and mission. And 3, ensure that leadership is aligned and supportive. It has to be tight. The messaging has to be tight, and it has to be supported at all levels of the organization.